pasta dough. Well, I was live yesterday as well. And because I'm relatively new to Facebook Live, I've done some in the past. Facebook Live, YouTube Live rather. Sorry, YouTube. I'm relatively new to YouTube Live, so I'm still figuring out camera angles and how to get the most out of this application. I've got my pasta machine here, and of course, if you missed yesterday, which quite frankly I had, I think, one person tune in. No big deal. Thank you for that. By the way, mountain bike buddy of mine tuned in, and we were working on my in-home cooking class, which is tonight. And I was reviewing how to get ready for an in-home cooking class. My recipe, my grocery shopping list here, which is extremely low on information because I shop volumetrically. So I've got 10 people. I do groups of 2, so I have 5 Roma tomatoes plus 1 for me, which is my demo. Cucumber, I have 2 large English cucumbers. I can cut each one of those 2 or 3 times, giving every team a piece of cucumber. Bell peppers, I usually do that as a brunoise, as a garnish. So 2 peppers is enough, regardless of how many people, so on and so forth. So that's how I do my shopping lists. And because we're cooking in home, grab an apron here. Because we're cooking in home, I don't have a ton of prep to do, really, because we're gonna make the food on site and together. Delicious coffee. Okay, but I always have some prep I need to do. Equipment, so getting my meat mallet, my pasta machine, pastry bag, and star tip because we're making mousse, a large whisk, pasta dough is my last item to make, chicken breast. I always prep the protein before I get there. Welcome if you're just joining us. I'm making fresh pasta dough. Before I put my apron on, check out my new shirt. I was just in Pennsylvania and we rode the incline, and I used to live in Pittsburgh. That's where I went to culinary school back in 94, 95. Recently visited, went back to the restaurant where I used to work. It's no longer the same restaurant, but it's beautiful. They remodeled, the food was amazing. I had a great time. Somebody pointed out to me, your machine's filthy. No, it's just I never wash it with water, and because this is all metal construction, there's 0 plastic in this. This is a good one. This one, I got this when I was in high school, 93 or 94, I believe, and I've had it ever since. And it weighs a ton, it's very heavy, does a great job. Welcome if you're just joining us. I'm gonna be making fresh pasta dough here in just a minute. And let's go over how I'm getting ready for an in-home cooking class. So here we go. I don't have a ton of prep to do, but I always do the protein. So I portion the chicken breast. That'll get pounded out slightly because we're gonna do chicken piccata. I made the ricotta cheese filling for the ravioli. I cut a few vegetables for roasting vegetables. We're gonna be making Mediterranean salad, so that will cut. But I always cut the vegetable that we're gonna roast because I gotta get that in the oven right away. That takes a while. Okay, mise en place for pasta dough. I like to do a big bowl, flour, eggs, rubber gloves, oil, and some salt. These are all items to make pasta dough. It's really simple. I recently updated my recipe. I used to do 4 whole eggs, and now I do 2 eggs, 2 egg yolks, 2.5 cups of flour. So I don't actually own a measuring cup. So these are, I don't know, hopefully they're 8 ounces, but two heaping of this does the trick. Now you watch, look at recipes and it says to make like a pile of flour right on the deck. The problem with that is the eggs always spill out, and then I've had it where it slips in under the cutting board and makes a huge eggy mess. So I just do it in a bowl. It's the same thing. It's much neater. All right, 2 eggs, 2 whole eggs, 2 egg yolks. So years ago, I'm gonna wash my hands really quick. Years ago, I was working at a company, and that's where I got my start teaching, and we taught pasta classes among many other types of classes. And I worked down in South Denver, and there was a location in Boulder, and it was a pasta class, making raviolis, fresh pasta. And I think I had like 4 people signed up for the class. It sold out at 16. And all of a sudden, out of the blue, I had like 10 people sign up, like an hour and a half before class. And I'm like, what the heck is going on here? That's kind of unusual. It's not unprecedented, but usually 2 hours before class, we were pretty much locked in on the amount of numbers. So now I'm scrambling. I'm buying more ingredients, and I'm setting up and calling in extra help. And somebody volunteered who showed up. Hey, yeah, the guy in Boulder who was running that cooking school canceled his class at the last minute. I'm like, we can't do that. What the heck? Yeah, I said he didn't have the right ingredients, didn't feel comfortable teaching the class. So next day I pick up the phone. Hey, what happened? Oh, I couldn't find 00 flour. So I just went ahead and canceled the class because you can't make pasta without 00 flour. Double aught flour. And I'm like, I just used all-purpose flour and my class went great. I don't know what you're talking about. And this guy's standards were so high that if he didn't have the right ingredient, he just wouldn't run the class. So the point of the story is just use all-purpose flour. Okay, I like to crack my eggs one-handed. Okay, and then I'm going to separate 2 eggs. Let me show you how to do that. We got a little cup here. All right, and I just separate them through my hands. So use what you have, and that's the point. You know, I would never not run something because I didn't have it. I would improvise it or make it work. This particular chef's standards were different than mine, you know. But the point is, I think when it comes to food should be easy and fun. And if you're that stressed out about what kind of flour are you using, is it going to make that much of a difference? Not really. Quite frankly, making the dough is just such a small part of learning how to make pasta. I think rolling the pasta is far more important than the dough itself. And I'm not going to roll pasta today, but if I have some demand and people want to see that live, I'm happy to do that. In the meantime, if you want to learn more about rolling pasta, fork, check out my channel. Just do a quick search for pasta. I roll pasta. In fact, I have a video not too long ago that I made where I roll out like 40 feet of pasta by myself. All right, so I got my eggs in here, and I got my salt, touch of oil. I like a light oil. I used to do extra virgin, but now I do light oil. This is light olive oil, about a tablespoon. That's gonna do the trick. All right. Getting real close to 1,000 subscribers. I'm at, I think, 936. That's pretty cool. At 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 hours of watch time, I'm then eligible for monetizing, which is why when you watch YouTube, everybody's like, make sure you like and subscribe, because the more subscribers you have and the more impressions you get, the more that your ad space is worth. So that would be a benefit on top of just the opportunity to share my knowledge with people. I'm really, really here because I love that I get to create every day. Just getting that start. That same place I worked, I was teaching a date night cooking class. A gentleman come up to me at the break and he said, I'd give basically anything to switch positions with you as far as a career. And I asked him, well, thank you, sir, but what do you do for a living? And he said, well, I'm an attorney. And I said, well, I don't know, if you looked at my bank account compared to your bank account, I bet you wouldn't be so quick to jump. He said, well, when I was a young man and it was time to decide what to do for a living, I chose a lucrative career. The problem with that is I've never made anything in my life at work. Somebody comes to my desk, I review it, I sign it, I put it in another pile. That pile then goes off to someone else. I never see the end product. I don't know what kind of lawyer it was. Okay. Now I'm going to switch from a fork to a gloved hand. And I'm just going to slowly incorporate flour. I'm just kind of kneading here. Anyways, he said he often regretted not having a job that was more fulfilling from the standpoint of creating something. And he told me, make sure you know how lucky you are that you get to make something. He goes, and that's true of any craftsman. And I appreciate he uses that word craftsman. I consider myself a craftsman, not an artist. Because the difference between art and craft is that art exists solely for the reason of being art, and a craft is something that has tremendous function in this world. All right, I'm going to change this camera angle with a little bit. I'm still playing with camera angles. I'm still getting, I got a tripod here, and I'm also learning how to use that. Oh, there we go. Awesome. We're going for a ride. All right, here we go. Well, that's pretty good. Okay. You can do this in a machine. It works great in KitchenAid. I start with a paddle and then I switch to a dough hook. When I'm doing pasta classes, oftentimes I make people make this by hand and from scratch. Okay, now I'm incorporating flour. Interesting, I think I actually have too much flour in here. I made this the other day, on Monday. I had a in-home cooking class with pasta, with ravioli. And it was 2.5 cups of flour, 4 eggs, so on and so forth. And it was measured so perfectly. Every bit of flour, every ounce of flour was perfectly incorporated. The dough was perfect. I have a ton of flour left over. I think it's drier today. It was definitely rainy and not great weather on Monday. I think humidity has a big impact. Okay, I'm gonna take that out of the bowl. This feels okay though. You want it to be fairly dry. See how it's shaggy, like shag carpet? That's good. That is actually what I'm looking for. Now, interesting, it took me a while to discover this. No one ever told me this. But as you knead, you are distributing the moisture more evenly, which is why you want to knead doughs. And then it'll actually get more wet as you work it. Yeah, good. Some people use Durham flour, semolina. Some people use, like myself, all-purpose. 00 is king. I mentioned that earlier, that I worked with a colleague who wouldn't run his class because he didn't have 00 flour. It's very expensive here in the States. It's just, in Italy they just call it flour. That's what they use. And the difference is it's all-purpose flour that's been milled to a finer consistency. So it's not that it's grown or processed any differently, with the exception of how they mill it at the end. Okay, turn, fold, push, turn, fold, push, turn, fold, push. Early on in my teaching career, I asked somebody to knead some dough, and they took a ball of dough and just went like this. I was like, what on earth are you doing? I didn't say that, but I was like, it's interesting. She's like, well, when you say knead, this is like how a cat kneads. A cat gets in there, there's a little nest, they're kneading. I'm like, oh gosh, okay. So what I've discovered through my career as a culinary instructor is leave nothing to chance. Teach everything. If you tuned in yesterday, I mentioned peeling celery, and I talk about teach peeling celery, because celery is unpleasant and stringy unless you peel it, and then it's crisp and delicious. Okay, I'm getting pretty happy with this. Let's take a look. See how it's not quite bouncing back? So when I push and it just leaves an imprint, that's not kneaded enough. I want to knead this to the point where it springs back. You need that glutinous development be able to roll pasta into a long sheet and not have it tear or break apart. This is a long dough that's in opposition to a short dough. You hear shortbread, short dough shortening, shortbread cookies. That's because they're very crumbly. The gluten is barely developed. It's kneaded as little as possible. Pie crust is a short dough. Where this, in opposition, they don't call it a long dough, but that's essentially what you have here, is you have long strands of gluten, which will create a long web. Gluten is protein. When you add water to flour, you make gluten and gliadin, which then become gluten. And the reason people have gluten allergies is because food allergies are based on proteins. I have a shellfish allergy. Shellfish is protein. I have an apple sensitivity because apples and avocados are part of the latex family, and latex has a protein in it, as I understand it. I am not an allergist. Okay, let's take a look now. Push. See how that springs back? Look at that. Now, as this sits, the gluten, those little rubber bands of protein will relax. So that will add pliability. If I tried to roll this into my machine right this second, I wouldn't get anywhere. It would roll and it would snap back instantly. If you've ever had that when you're trying to make fresh pizza dough, pizza pie. Weird. I estimated the amount of flour. That's obviously way too much. Now this isn't a tremendously large size of ball of dough, but I'm not, because this is one of two appetizers. If I had a huge piece of dough, in my experience, people will want to use every bit of every piece of an ingredient. So there's no like, oh, we have some dough left. Let's roll that out too. But there's a point where we have to stop and move on. So I control the pacing of the class by making some ingredients a little bit more precious to come by. Oh, guys, that's all the dough we have. Be careful with that. You know, if everybody wants the chance, we've got to be careful. You know, it's just, I mean, this is an inexpensive product. It's just flour and eggs, so it's not, it doesn't boil down to cost. It really boils down to making a good experience for people. Because not only are we doing this, we're also making Mediterranean salad, we're making oregano vegetables, we're making chicken piccata, we're making a dessert. So it's a lot of work. And I don't want people to feel like they're working. I want people to enjoy their evening and have a social outlet. It's not about these cooking classes that I do for Manufactured Fine Lines. It's not about learning how to cook. It's about fellowship. Okay, wrap that in plastic. So I'm not going to refrigerate this. I can. You can refrigerate overnight, but I'm not going to. How long will this last? Make it and use it. If you have it sit overnight, the eggs will oxidize. You know how eggs turn green, if you've ever seen that? The dough will actually turn green. So I'm going to leave this out. I'm going to put it with my dry items so that if it gets cold and the fat tightens up and the eggs tighten up, then it gets harder to roll. Okay, eggs can go away. I got quite a bit extra flour. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that. Got my pasta machine, my salt pig. One last thing to do, and then I'll be ready for my cooking class tonight. Then, after I'm ready for my cooking class, I get to wash dishes from the pizza party I had a few days ago. I did a live video for the pizza party. If you haven't seen it, check it out. That one actually posted to my YouTube channel just fine, whereas my yesterday's live video, it didn't. So I'm not quite sure what I did wrong, but no big deal. That's kind of the reason I'm here again, is to build a little bit of a live audience. All right, so when I fold aprons, I like to be really consistent. Just like anything else in the kitchen, I try to be as consistent as possible. I try to do everything the same way every time. And I just flip these over because I want the seam facing up. Okay, so like the seam is up. I like to fold over, bundle the apron strings, tuck those apron strings in. And then here's the neck. I like to have the neck tucked in there. And this, I like to hand people an apron just like that. Now, this one's upside down, we flip. So what I find sometimes, if you have something a little bit more complicated, it would be easier just to hand somebody a loose apron, right? So it takes a few minutes to go through each and every apron and fold it. But it's easier to pack, they're easier to keep unwrinkled, they're easier for people to put on. If you hand somebody something nice, they keep it nice. I've found that to be true pretty much universally. Okay. When you go into a nice restaurant, you might not immediately notice that you're drinking out of expensive wine glasses, high-end silverware, and real china plates, expensive ingredients the servers are wearing, beautiful uniforms, but that all of that adds to the quality of the experience. Okay. The other reason I like to fold each and every one is I look for hair, which sticks to these aprons. These have been washed and dried, but you know, ladies' hair particularly can stick a little bit, so I just try to kind of keep an eye out for that. I figure that's clean hair because it went through the washer and dryer. I do take these home and wash them in my washer and dryer. Ironically, I work for a large appliance company and I have this huge warehouse, 300 square feet of appliances just on the other side of my door behind me. But we don't have any functioning washers and dryers. I actually used to have the hardworking men and women in the warehouse help launder some of my aprons and towels, but they would go missing. And I, you know, at first I was upset by that, but I'm like, you know what? They have limited resources. Oh, there's some dry towels and aprons. I found one of my aprons kind of cut up and somebody was polishing stainless with it. I was like, well, okay, I can't really blame them. So kind of like I make less dough than I know we're going to go through. You know, if you make a resource slightly limited, people take better care of the resources that they have. That's true in restaurants as well. Side towels are hard to come by in a restaurant. It's not that each one is particularly expensive to be washed and dried and sent back to the restaurant, but if you gave people 50 side towels each a night, they would use 50 side towels. But if you give them 3, 2 to keep dry during service, 1 to wet to wipe things down, and at the end of the day you use all 3 to clean your station. And then if you make it through, what I would do, most cooks do this, if you make it through service and you only use 2 side towels, keep that dry and clean one and you save it. You always have 5 or 6 extra side towels maybe in your locker in case one gets wet or somebody steals one. You know, they take your side towel, you set it down, you walk away, you come back a minute later, your side towel's gone. Of course it's gone. I'm not gonna use my side towel to wipe down this greasy grill. I'm gonna use your side towel. We all do it. Okay. I only need 10 aprons, but I wash them in batches. I try to do laundry once a week. Okay, so I have everything ready. I have my equipment. I have my towels, my dough. Want my dry goods, my staples. So staples would include oil, salt, pepper, a couple common dry spices I use, oregano, crushed red pepper flakes, smoked paprika, liqueurs or liquors, so solid, brandy, frangelico, I use those three quite frequently. Usually bring things like olives for charcuterie, capers. I consider that one of my staples because I don't need to buy it every time. I can buy a small jar of staples and have it last several events. And my produce is ready, my meat's ready. That's it. Okay. Well, thanks for tuning in live for Pasta Dough. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out in the comments. Love to have you join us there. Look at how nice that looks. Look at that. That's so then I just go around and I hand people aprons. I love that. Okay, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. It's Chef Mark. I was live. Little pasta dough. Appreciate it. We'll see you next time. How do I turn this off?